thought of mandrakes as kind of unsung heroes. I mean, they save a lot of people's lives when they're made into restorative potion. People that have been transfigured, cursed, petrified, brings them back to their natural state of being. Now, I'm sure that's not something a mandrake would choose to do. It's kind of an ornery plant. It would never think it would save someone's life, but a lot of times you never know what you can do until something comes up. And that's true with whether you're a muggle or you're a wizard. A lot of times you'll have a gentleman going around and he's bragging about how brave he is, and don't worry, darling, I'll save you if anything happens. And then something happens, and he's the first one hiding under the bed. And it works the opposite way too sometimes. One of my favorite students was Neville Longbottom. And when he first came to school, he was a mess. He couldn't do anything right. He had no self-confidence. Came to his first herbology lesson in his second year. All of a sudden, something clicked for Neville. He had found something he was good at. He was fantastic at herbology. He is the best herbology student I have had to this day. Well, the more his confidence grew in herbology, the more it started to seep into other areas of his life. He started to be more confident in some of his other classes. He became more confident in his dealings with students and teachers. By the time he was a sixth year, students were looking up to him. He was a leader. And in our last great wizarding war, he was one of our greatest heroes. But if you could have seen him when he first came to school, he couldn't do anything right. He was clumsy. He was forgetful. Everything he touched just crumbled apart. Well, he had been raised by his grandmother, and she had never let him do things that she thought were dangerous. So he had never been allowed to go on a broom. She was probably afraid he would fall off and kill himself, and he very well might have, the way he was. Well, when he was at school, one of the things that always struck me as odd about Neville, he had an awful fear of one of our professors. And that was the potions master, Professor Snape. Now, none of the students liked Snape. He wasn't that type of a person. But nobody had that irrational fear that Neville did. And the more I got to know Neville, I used to ask him, why? What caused that? Why do you feel that way? What started it? He never wanted to talk about it. Until he got maybe to be in sixth year. All of a sudden he came down to me one day and he said, Professor, I'm going to tell you how I happened to meet Professor Snape and why I've never liked him. Well, turns out because Neville had not been allowed to go on a broomstick, when he came to school, that was the one thing he was really looking forward to. He thought that would be wonderful. He'd be able to fly through the sky free as a bird. So he was all excited. He went down to his first flying lesson, and it was a disaster. He fell off his broom. He broke his wrist. He ended up in the hospital wing. Well, by the time he left the hospital wing, when his wrist was all healed up, he was very depressed, and he was walking up to his dormitory, and he happened to pass some older students who were talking about a professor who was willing to sell any student who had enough galleons a potion that would help them excel in one of their classes. Well, Neville thought, that's for me. I'll get this potion. I'll use it for flying lessons. I'll be one of the best flyers in the school. So he hurried up to his dormitory, and he got the money Grandma had given him for his birthday, and he went down to the dungeons. And in Neville's own words, this is what happened. I took my troubles to Professor Snape, that bad-like teacher in the huge black cape. He's got a roost down in dungeon number 9, selling bootleg potions for 6 galleons, Connaught 5. I told him that my broomstick barely left the ground. The only direction that it knew was down. He peered at my broom and he offered up a leer. Said, what you need is my moldy butterbeer. He bent down, swooped around, and gave me a sneer. He said, I got some moldering now right over here. It smelled like boobo tuber, pus as black as giant squid ink. I gripped my broom, I closed my eyes, I gulped that drink. I didn't know if I was up or down. My broom was zooming with me all around. I couldn't tell if I was near the ceiling or the floor until I cracked my head on that solid dungeon door. The hospital wing is where I woke up that night again, and I don't think I'm going back to try another flight. How'd that dungeon door get closed anyway? I know I left it open. Must have been that Snape. I don't think I trust that guy. He's kind of scary. Ooh. And Snape was scary. He scared most of the students, but a lot of them didn't let on like Neville did. And Snape was more than scary. He was a bully. He bullied all the students all the time. In fact, he even bullied some of us teachers if he thought he could get away with it. And that is one thing I have never been able to abide is a bully. I don't care what happened in your childhood. I don't care how you were raised, how awful it was. I don't care about how many loves you have loved and lost. And I don't care about always. Oh, get over it. You were treated badly. You should be the one person who treats others with respect. Because you know how awful it can be to be bullied.